Good evening, Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 here to talk about Tennessee's quarterfinal win over the Texas Longhorns in the Southeastern Conference Tournament. Final score, it just ended. Tennessee beats Texas 83-72. The Vols will play Auburn tomorrow in what'll be just a great game. Each team, I think, will try to beat each other to death, among other things. We saw it the first time around. It went down to the wire. I think you could see it that way again. Texas, meanwhile, ends its season in the regular season, I believe, at 19-15, and will await maybe an NCAA bid, maybe an NIT bid. We don't know. Longhorns are about as on the bubble as you can get, and they've got a very interesting resume. I'll talk about that probably at the end of the show. I'm going to start by talking about Tennessee a little bit. And by the way, if you're wondering where are Blake Lovell and Max Barr, they're at the arena where it is difficult to get a connection that is broadcast worthy there. So you're left with me today. Jay Greeson probably going to join me in a little bit, but want to highlight some things today from the game that I think are important. I think for Tennessee, it was a tale of two guards and two halves. Zakai Ziegler in the first half sits the final 6 minutes with his second foul. Rick Barnes loves to do that. I don't agree with it, but Rick Barnes has won a lot more games than I have as coach, so it worked out. Ziegler came back, really was the spark that Tennessee needed. Not that it needed a spark, but it was great in the second half. He gets 19 points. Chaz Lanier, the story in the first half, I believe he was 8 of 11 from the field, scored 19 points, and got Tennessee in position to win, being up 41-38 at half, which the Vols did end up doing. Some other things that caught my mind, and I'm going to take a more forward-looking approach at Tennessee because, look, I think whatever happens with Auburn tomorrow, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it's nice to get the win. I mean, I say it doesn't matter. It could be the tiebreaker between whether Tennessee or Florida or Alabama gets that final 1 seed. I have no idea what that's going to be, but we'll find out. But the thing I liked about the Vols today was just some things I saw. You saw each guard. In the first half, it was Lanier. In the second half, it was Ziegler. Take over. And that leads me to kind of where I'm going. I know they don't have a Dalton Connect this year, but I think I like their parts better on the whole this year. On the whole. Last year, I think they sat around and waited for Connect to do something at times, and we know how that ended. Nice season, but not as far as the Vols wanted to go. I see this year a Ziegler that is more recovered from an knee injury than it was a year ago. That's got to help. Lanier has stepped up and been an SEC, all-SEC caliber guy. Both of them have been able to carry the team at times. And then you saw Jordan Gainey do that against Illinois, going coast to coast. They won that one on the road. They've got a lot of guys who can step up. You've seen Milicic step up and do stuff at times. I thought Cade Phillips today was tremendous. Just a guy off the bench who gave them a lot of rebounds and some physicality and some toughness inside. I talk about Florida a lot of times, how I like their first 8 or 9. Tennessee's kind of right there in that category too, guys. They got a lot of guys who can do stuff. And Phillips is that guy that you really love. To have a third competent big is a luxury in college basketball, and I think Cade Phillips gives them that. And look, Cade Phillips, I think, was a top 100 recruit out of high school. Good ball player. He is relegated to a secondary role with a lot of guys they've got. But I think today showed you how versatile Tennessee is. Vols basically played 7 people. They played Dubar, who I thought would be a much bigger factor coming into the year. But their 7 give them a lot. Dubar's a good guy to have in reserve in case you get guys in foul trouble. But I thought, and today when they got in foul trouble, you saw Cade Phillips come off the bench when Akpara had 4 and really give them something. He got 3 points, but he got 6 rebounds, got a block. I thought was very, very good and tough in what they needed. So I think I like Tennessee's parts better than I do or did a year ago. I think that matchup with Auburn is going to be terrific. I will be very interested to see if it is a slow-paced game the way Auburn's game against Ole Miss was today. I just think if you're Rick Barnes at this point, if you're Bruce Pearl, you just want to get out of this thing without anybody beat up. I really think that's what you want more than anything. Again, Tennessee's got something to play for. potentially, if the tournament committee is using this as a tiebreak, either Florida or Alabama are going to eliminate each other in the quarters if they both get there. One of them could get eliminated tonight. But I will be very curious to see if one of these teams wins it between Tennessee, Florida, and Alabama, if that serves as a tiebreak. We'll see. Feels like if Tennessee does, it could. Because the Vols, I think, played a tougher schedule than Florida did. So just something to watch. I would have to look at the numbers and crunch them, which I've not done, to see how that goes head-to-head. And look, if they all get beat tomorrow, maybe it won't matter. But keep an eye on that. Other than that, tomorrow doesn't mean much for Tennessee. And you know what? You get that 4 seed, you may get sent out west anyway. So worse things could happen than Tennessee getting a 2 and staying closer to home. For Texas, we just kind of wait and see where this goes. I was looking at wins above bubble today, which I think is going to be a key metric, and I think Texas was 46th in that. Really, you want to be probably a half dozen spots higher than they are. That may be the thing that gets Texas in the end. Also, 15 losses. It is hard to get in the tournament with 15 losses, especially when you played a garbage non-conference schedule. Look, I think Texas, in terms of talent, is tournament worthy. And if Texas got in the tournament, I would not have an issue with it. And, I think any of us would love to see Trey Johnson in the tournament. That'd be great. But the wins above bubble number scares me. The 15 losses scares me. And like Arkansas, you look at how once Arkansas started winning some games, Arkansas got in that bubble conversation in a hurry because it had to win over Michigan out of the league. Oklahoma did it because it got 3 really good wins out of conference. Texas does not have that. Texas's out of conference resume is, I think we didn't move didn't lose a bad game. But now the quad 1 and quad 2 wins, if Texas gets in, that's the number to watch. That's going to be the thing that's going to get them in. And if people are wondering where my co-hosts are, they are in the arena. It is really difficult to get service where you can stream a quality video. Also difficult to find a quiet spot, to be honest. I've been in that building for more tournament games than I can count. And it is a challenge sometimes just to find a spot to do radio from. You can find it in the hallway, but you can't see the games at the time while you're doing it. So that is why the dynamics of the channel have been different this week. Nothing more than just it is really hard for those guys to watch the games and bring it to you. So I'm staying home and kind of keeping you guys company here. Again, Jay Greeson may join me for just a minute. He may not. I may be done by the time he joins me because there's not a whole lot more to say. I think for Texas, here's what you're watching. And let me pull up the document I've got because it is a very specific list of things that you're rooting for if you're Texas, or maybe if you're Vanderbilt or Arkansas or Oklahoma for that matter, and want to avoid Dayton. I think all those teams get in. I mean, there's a scenario that could play out where one of those teams gets out in addition to Texas. But here are the things that you were kind of watching, okay? You're watching the Mountain West. If Colorado State or Boise win the Mountain West and there's 4 teams left, that is going to take a bit. Those are bubble teams, but I think the consensus is all those teams are behind Texas and for that matter, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Oklahoma as well. Georgia's a notch above all those teams, so I don't even count Georgia in that. Here's another thing to watch. You want anybody – you do not want anybody but Memphis to win the American. I think Memphis is getting in regardless. The other 7 teams that are still alive in that thing, last time I checked, it might have been a team or 2 knocked off. North Texas was the only other team that was even remotely in the conversation, and I think they were 8th team out. So if anybody besides Memphis wins the American Conference, that's going to be a bid gone from somebody, and that's going to really hurt at Texas. If somebody besides VCU wins the A-10, that could steal a bid too. VCU might be good enough to get in at large. They are very, very borderline, and it's going to depend on what the committee values. But if you are an SEC fan, you're a Texas fan, you're rooting really hard for VCU. If North Carolina wins or keeps winning, obviously if Carolina wins 2 more games, Carolina is going to be the ACC champ and get an automatic bid. If Carolina beats Duke tonight, I think that game's tonight. That could be problematic. North Carolina might seal in a large bid just by beating Duke. I don't think there's a lot of quad one wins there for the Tar Heels. Don't have the net in front of me, but keep an eye on that one. You want North Carolina to lose tonight. And the other one I'm watching is the Big West. I think UCSD, that's UC San Diego, might get in as an at-large, but I'm not sure. Oh, here's Jay Greeson. Jay, I don't know how long you've been sitting there. My apologies. I had my bubble document in front of me.
Dude, you were crushing. You were like Chrissy Brackets right there. I mean, no, you don't apologize for nothing. A couple things that you said that I do know. UNC is 1-11 in quad one games.
Okay.
Tonight is monstrous for them. If they lose tonight, especially without Cooper Flagg, I don't care about how blue their blood is. How do you give them a bid?
We know who the chair of the selection committee is, don't you?
Really? I mean, is it who is it? Bubba? Is it Bubba?
Bob Cunningham.
Yeah. So
do we now look? I'm not throwing shade at Bubba Cunningham, but I know how the world works. Are we leaving the 22-win North Carolina team out of the dance? I mean, if they beat Duke tonight, that gives the committee the cover it needs.
It does, 100%. Completely agree with you, even without Cooper Flagg. But actually, they probably had a little bit of cover. But you don't beat them. You don't beat Duke in a must-win, a Cooper Flaggless Duke. That actually was maybe bad news to Carolina.
Yeah,
because I can see if Cooper plays and they lose, and I know this is Southeastern 16, and we'll talk about the Vols in just a second, but it's one of the non-Reader's Digest story of this is it's sad that conference tournaments have a shelf life of warm milk because everybody's talking about the brackets. And here's my idea. Move the big conference tournaments to last weekend. Yeah. Let us enjoy the conference tournament. And you know who you move to this weekend to fill the TV void? The Southern Conference, the AAC, the one-bid leagues where people are playing for their lives. And then we all get to see them up close and personal as we're getting ready for our brackets. How does this not make sense, Chris?
Well, the problem, I think, is the calendar. If you move it back, then you're probably cutting out some out-of-conference game. You're probably cutting out some conference play, or you're starting it earlier at a time where people are focused on football. I'm guessing that's been thrown out somewhere to somebody, and it all usually goes back to money.
But back to, because I think the bubble conversation, this was not a good look for Texas. I mean, and hey, I know they were tired, and I know, would I give Texas a bid? Yes, I would.
Yeah,
even at 6-12 with a conference record, because of what that conference is. Because if you're going to tell me through the last 5, 7, 8 years, it's about metrics and it's about quad one wins, it's about who you schedule. Their resume in that type of conversation is better than North Carolina's, whether they're 19-15 compared to North Carolina's 22 wins. And at that point in time, you're just putting the name on the front of the jersey in the tournament more than the resume.
I think Texas's issue, and wins above bubble is kind of like WAR for baseball. I presume you know what that is. And I'm not sitting here telling you that WAR is completely accurate in baseball. In fact, I have some issues with it, and same may go for this. But when you're 45 and wins above bubble coming into today, and North Carolina is 3 spots ahead of you, and I'm guessing the order's not going to change after tonight. I don't, again, and I know Bubba Cunningham leaves the room, right? But human nature comes back in the room. His team didn't get in. I mean, come on.
Well, and see, I think there's as much the hand-holding and conversation points. Which basketball program draws more eyeballs to CBS, TNT, TBS, or True TV? North Carolina as a 11 seed in round 1, or goodness forbid in round 2, with 2 future pros or Texas. Now,
Yeah.
and I know, hey, Texas has got a dude. They've got their second best player since Kevin Durant. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that kid's amazing. And I know you opened this little show, and I'm sorry I was a few minutes late. I had to pick up dinner for the Tots. But Tennessee, if Tennessee's going to shoot anything north of 45% and Tennessee's going to rebound like that, nobody wants to see Tennessee because scoring against them, and hey, I know a lot of Tennessee fans have a whole lot of complaints about Rick Barnes. Think he can't win the big one. Underachieved with some high-profile talent. I'll tell you what, those boys guard now. Guard. And if Tennessee gets north of 75, you want no part of them over the next 3 weeks. And that starts tomorrow with Auburn.
Well, and you weren't here for this, but I made the argument. You see if you agree. I think this year's Tennessee is maybe a more dangerous team than last year's. And I know nobody on this roster is Dalton Connect. I get it. But my goodness, they just stuck around and watched him play at times. Santiago Vescovi just became invisible and lost his confidence. They have 2 other guards who can score. Or, I mean, they've got Lanier. They've also got Ziegler did it in the second half. Gainey can step up and do it at times. He was a go-to guy at USC Upstate a few years back. And I think, too, Cade Phillips today was a guy that kind of caught my eye, Jay. Cade Phillips gives him a third, and not that he wasn't this before, but it was just on display. Cade Phillips gives him a third really quality big. And bigs get in foul trouble all the time. It is. I think this year's a better team than last year's.
Well, it's invaluable for 2 reasons. One, you can keep your bigs rotating and fresh. But 2, for a lack of a better word to borrow from Forrest Gump, crap happens in the NCAA tournament. Somebody rolls an ankle. Somebody gets 3 fouls in the first 6 minutes. There's just a bunch of stuff that goes on. All right, let's finish Tennessee, but I've got something I really want to talk about that Jay Williams said during the halftime broadcast of ESPN that I think was unbelievably insightful. So I think Tennessee did exactly what they needed to do. They walked in there, they took Trey Johnson out of the game and said, okay, somebody else is going to beat us. And then they just methodically wore them down and was it honestly was tip of the visor to Rick Barnes. I think that was a maestro performance. That was exactly what you want to do.
Well, and my bad for not mentioning that earlier. I may have buried the lead. You hold Trey Johnson to not just 11. He only got off 8 shots. Like that dude.
Exactly.
That dude can get off a shot in a phone booth and hit it. I mean, he is just it's crazy how quick his release is. He can create space. He's long. And I think, part of March is, do you have that guy that can get you the basket? And I think Tennessee's got multiple guys. If you can hold down maybe a top 5 pick like that, just an amazing kid. We did all SEC teams. I named him on my 5-man first team. Like, that's the other part of it. You can take a guy's dude away. It's really hard to win when you take a Trey Johnson out of the game the way Tennessee did today.
One more thing, and then remind me about the Jay Williams comment.
Because
I think this is important. It's more important than basketball than in any other sport, but it's universal in not only sports and life. I love the phrase, you can accomplish amazing things when nobody cares about the credit. Zakai Ziegler had 0 points in the first half. 0. What did he do? Did he pout? Did he start forcing shots? And some of that was foul trouble and precaution. And did he come out there and start yelling at teammates? No. He went out there and dominated the second half and finished with 19? And all in the second half. And Chaz Lanier picked him up in the first half and then took a secondary role. To your point about Dalton Connect, if Dalton Connect had got held, and Dalton Connect was not only a great player, he was a great guy. I mean, this is not bad-mouthing Dalton Connect. It was how that whole team formed around him.
Yep.
Where it was, okay, if Dalton can hit a couple early, we're going to win. If he can't, then we're all going to stand around till he can hit a couple. And then, and if that doesn't help, if that doesn't work, then we're going to lose. But this team, to your point, they share it. And I'm not talking about sharing the basketball. It's easy to share the basketball. They share the moments. And I go back to the cliche I said. If you don't care about the credit, you can accomplish amazing things. I'm starting to believe in this Tennessee team a little bit more than I did maybe a month ago.
I'm with you. And one thing I love about Barnes, and man, do you ever see this in the portal era? He recruits high character kids, and he recruits kids who are willing to do that. That is a hard skill to do. Like I have heard a lot of this stuff about, oh, well, can't wait for Rick to retire. Basically, Tennessee fans want a guy that can take them to a Final Four. Be careful what you wish for.
Amen to that, brother.
Because I think the skill he's got, and I get that they have their moments where the offense goes in the deep freeze and it's into their season, and I get it, man. But it is infinitely hard to do what they do on a year. I mean, look, and I know it's different, right? I know it's different. But when Jay Wright stepped down at Villanova, and I get they were winning national titles, going to Final Fours, there was another level. They dropped off the map with the coaching change. Like that's an NIT program now.
Yeah.
Nothing's given, man. And look, this may be the year they get there. It would not shock me. It wouldn't shock me. And I know if they lose, the narrative is going to be, well, that's what Tennessee does. First round rip. All the jokes are going to start.
Predictable. They defensively, he wears them out. I mean, yeah, but I don't think it's fair per se, and I think he's done as good a coaching job this year as he has done with just about because last year I expected Tennessee to be good, especially after their early start. This Tennessee's better than I expected, and they're better now than I expected them to be a month ago. But the one thing I wanted to cover that Jay Williams said that I thought it made a light bulb go off in my head, because you and I have had a couple of basketball conversations in the last couple of days as Blake and Max are tied up in the bowels of Bridgestone Arena. Jay Williams at halftime said he's worried about SEC teams in the tournament because they've played with these officials who have let them play so physically all year that if they get to somebody and it's a quick whistle crew, you're talking about foul trouble. And if you're not one of the deeper teams, that could be really important. You're talking about a team getting to the foul line and wearing you out with freebies. You're talking about pressure building in a situation. And I thought that was so insightful, because these athletes are so great in this league this year that there's a foul on every play.
Yeah.
Truly. In the definition of basketball that I grew up watching basketball, not only is there a walk on every possession, there is a foul in almost every time anybody purposely goes to the basket. Now, whether it's called or not is the definition of a foul. But, I mean, the physicality in this league, while it makes these guys great and impressive, you go see a UC San Diego on a Sunday of the first weekend, and they're calling fouls, and they're knocking down free throws, and they're guarding you and contesting shots. This could be – I just thought that was a really insightful way to look at it with the way the SEC physicality and the officiating has just mushroom cloud.
Well, I think the games were called differently within the games this year. The first half, a lot of stuff would go. The second half, if you looked at somebody the wrong way.
No, I think that, and you and I will do, at some point, we're going to pull aside and we're going to do a basketball refereeing show between now and Championship Sunday, because I now want to start the campaign that Pat Adams needs to retire.com. I'll go ahead and I'll be that guy. I'll be the face of it. I don't care. I mean, Pat Adams, bro, nobody bought a ticket to watch you call a basketball game and blow a whistle. Okay. I mean, I appreciate it. I really do. It's a thankless job. Heck, I was a high school basketball player outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and Bruce Benedict, the former Braves catcher, was refereeing our game against Wheeler. And he called a charge on me, and I pounded the ball on the floor, and I handed it to him. I said, Bruce, you call a basketball game like you hit a curveball. Terribly. And he teed me up. Man. And I deserved it. I deserved it. It's okay, though. I get this great story later in life. And, I mean, heck, I've told that story to Dale Murphy. And it made – I was hosting a radio show here in Chattanooga. And Dale Murphy laughed for 22 minutes. In between questions, he just kept laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. Oh, that Bruce Benedict line got me. I mean, it was great. But Pat Adams, nobody, no, I mean, all of you guys.
Yeah.
No, you guys are not the center of attention. You guys need to embrace the offensive line mindset. If we don't know your names, that's the greatest compliment we can have.
And Jay, I'm telling you, it's a problem. This has been the greatest year in the history of SEC basketball, and we've had these conversations on our show so many times. And look, I'll tell you, I have sat on the floor at the SEC tournament 10 feet from the players. And let me tell you, it is a different game when you're down there. The movement is so quick. It's almost paralyzing. Now, having said that, they've had thousands of hours to do this, and I haven't. They're used to the speed of the game, that stuff. I just think this year, so many times that the phantom foul calls, on one end, on the next end, somebody gets clobbered. I'm not going to name names, but
I went on too many tangents there. Do you have questions, or do you want to kick around the nightcaps?
Yeah, a couple things, and let's end because I'm going to need to get to watching SEC baseball in a minute. By the way, Skip Carey was the best. Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, hey, bro. Hey, I'll give you a great Skip Carey story. He got a little nine-eyed one night, and I was watching TBS back in the early days of TBS, and the Braves were getting drunk. The Braves were getting whipped, and Skip Carey, and I'm watching it with my dad, and the Braves. Skip Carey gets on the microphone and goes, "Gang, the bases are loaded, and so am I." And I said, "Dad, what is he talking about?" He went, "Just watch the game, son. Just watch it."
if you want to go down a fun rabbit hole, just go to YouTube and look up Skip Carey. I mean, he
used to the Hawks too when I was growing up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he got so frustrated with the Hawks one night, he went, "All right, gang, if you promise to patronize our sponsors, you have my permission to turn the channel."
I heard that one. I think the best one was one year. They take the field. He says, like lambs being led to a slaughter, here come the Braves to play the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes. The Braves take the field to play the Pirates. That was an all-time classic. Yeah, let's wrap it up because I've got to get out of here. Again, back to Texas. Stuff to watch. Here's what you're rooting for. You do not want Colorado State or Boise State to win the Mountain West. Frankly, you probably want them to lose tonight. If anybody but Memphis wins the American, that's a problem. If anybody besides VCU wins the A-10, it might be a problem because VCU might get in as an at-large. They are very borderline. North Carolina is going to be a problem, especially if it wins tonight. Of course, we'll get the automatic. That settles that. And then Big West, you probably want UCSD to win. If it doesn't, you want Irvine to win. If anybody else wins, that's potential trouble because I could see – in fact, here's a real nightmare scenario. I hadn't thought about this. If Santa Barbara, Cal Poly win the Big West, it is not Alabama. I don't think this would happen, but say it's a 1% possibility. Maybe UCSD and Irvine, they're both in that at-large conversation. So I don't think it would happen, but
I think
just going to throw that out there.
I think you and I are on the same page that Texas needs 90% of their dominoes to fall the right way.
Yeah. Quick look ahead to tonight, Missouri, Florida. My goodness, they might break the scoreboard in that one. That'll be fun. And Kentucky, Alabama, same thing. Yeah, you could be late getting out of Bridgestone tonight if you're working that thing, because I could see a lot of points. I could see an overtime or two, and these teams can put. I mean, those are maybe what, 4 of the top 5 offensive teams in the country, 4 of the
Yeah.
top 10 at least. So if
And
you like your
and I
points, you're going to
also
love
see a
tonight.
whole lot of scalpers making a whole lot of money on the streets. If you've got Auburn, Tennessee in a 1:00 Eastern semifinal, and Florida against either Alabama or Kentucky
Yeah.
in the afternoon semifinal, because then you're talking about not only 4 of the top 6 or 7 offenses in the country, you're talking about 4 of the top 6 teams in the country.
Yeah. By the way, let me clarify something. I do not think the Big West is getting 3 teams. I think that's maybe a 1 in 1,000 possibility. I'm just saying you've got Irvine and UC San Diego. They're right there.
I think UC
If
San
they were at
Diego's going
large,
up.
they might get in anyway. What you want is UCSD to win that thing and probably put it to bed. There's a borderline chance that Irvine could get in too if they met in the finals and they won it. You never know how the committee's going to think, right? I mean, occasionally you will see a team get in that, like, we weren't even really talking about as a top.
Well,
We might have been talking about as a 5th team out. The committee is goofy, and I will tell you one other thing too. There have been situations rumored in other sports where there's been some horse trading that's gone on, and you're like, hey, how did that team get in? I'm just saying, committees are human beings. Human beings sometimes do things that align with their own interests. Maybe that's something 2 years later when they pay somebody back a favor, but stuff happens sometimes, and I don't think it's going to happen. I just like to throw all the possibilities on the table and just tell you, here's the stuff to watch.
Oh, and I think that's smart, because I mean, we talked about it, and I don't think Ty K or anybody else will realize that Texas has a glaring weakness, in their conference record was 6-12, and that's going to be precedent setting. I mean, to be a team that's winning 33% of their conference games in the regular season, is going to. The committee's going to scratch some heads about that, even as great as this conference was. But I think you did a great job of throwing out possible potholes and different ways to have a rooting interest in some of these tournaments if you're an SEC fan and want the most SEC teams in the tournament.
Well, technically, conference records are not considered. They're not on the criteria, but you would have to live under a rock and not watch basketball for it not to be in the back of your head. So how that plays out, we'll find out on. And this is the point I was trying to make too earlier. Texas played a garbage non-conference strength of schedule. Now, look, I don't necessarily blame Texas. Like, Vanderbilt did it too, and Vanderbilt needed to do it. But if you're a couple of wins short at the end of the day, like Arkansas went and got one against Michigan on neutral floor. That's probably the reason Arkansas, among other things, isn't where Texas is. It got that one more win, and that could be the thing that's the determining factor. But anyway, Jay, appreciate you joining us. I'm going to get out of here. I need to start watching some baseball.
Go get them, and hey, I look forward to you and Graham and Alfred chopping up the first Friday night of SEC conference play in baseball later on Southeastern 16. That's going to be fun. Yeah,
looking forward to it. I'm going to keep one TV on that one. I got bonus room right behind me. Got 2 big screen TVs. One's going to be on baseball. One's going to be on basketball, I think. And we'll do it that way. I'm not sure what our plans for basketball later in the night are, but we will have that reaction live stream for Friday night. Holly, we will, I would say, watch. Well,
hey, give me a call. I'm about to sit down and watch. And hey, I'll carry basketball, because I know you're about to watch a whole bunch of baseball.
Yeah.
This first quarterfinal that's about to air, that's going to be great. And Florida's the best team playing better than any team in the country.
Well, I'll tell you this. Here's how you know. Hit the subscribe button, enable your notifications. So if we do schedule a stream, you'll know it's coming. Hey, look, and if we don't do more basketball tonight, I promise you, there's going to be plenty more on the way. And I'm guessing we're going to do a live stream marathon for the selection show. Generally, we get on 30 minutes, an hour early. We go through the bracket, and then we talk about it afterwards. So if you're not getting your basketball coverage in a couple hours, I promise you we're going to more than make it up to you but between now and when the season ends, frankly. So it's really hard. It's hard to explain. It's really hard to attend that event. And I think there's value in it because you see the guys up close like you hadn't seen them all year. But then to go be able to do this, to find a spot, I mean, it's just that's the one beef I have with the SEC tournament, as I wish it was easier to do this kind of live stream thing from there. And that's one reason you see me in my home office. But anyway,
bro, you got to tell everybody that you love them and God bless them.
Absolutely. And thanks to Max and Blake for boots on the ground there with some observations that I think will be meaningful as we do our predictions and stuff and our NCAA tournament prep. Anyway, Jay, thanks for joining me. I'll see you again soon. To our audience, thank you for watching and listening. God bless you. Have a great night. Remember, baseball coverage coming up tonight. We'll have a Friday night wrap around 9:45 Central. Could go earlier, could go a little later, but around that time, you'll see us again. God bless you. Have a great, safe evening. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 16.